Chidebere, are you on? Good morning, class. Let me welcome you to the class this morning, and we are going to continue our discussion
Good morning, sir.
that we stopped last week. Chidebere.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, we are starting now. Chidebere, class rep, are you on? I don't see his name. So today we are going to continue our discussion on Module 2, which is ethnography of the peoples of Nigeria. We had the introductory aspect last week, but we were not able to enjoy it because of the internet problem we had. So today we are going to continue trusting that everything will go smoothly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you today, and please listen as much as possible and do all your jottings. After the class, I'm going to send the material to your class rep so that you can have access to my PowerPoint document. And this will assist you in the materials we are going to download from the internet. So then we'll be looking at, we have tried to look at the meaning of ethnography. We have said that it refers to a description of a group of people. In other words, when we are describing a group of people, we call it ethnography. To look at the features, the characteristics of an Hausa man, of a Yoruba man, of a Briton, of a Chinese. What we are doing is ethnography. So we are trying to look at the features and ways of life that distinguish a group of people from one another. For example, now, if you see, okay, just a moment. Again. Okay, thank you, co-host.
Sir, I'm here. The class rep, sir.
Yes. So Chidebere, we are the co-host now, please. Okay. So are the co-host now. So I was trying to explain the meaning of ethnography, and I'm saying that it refers to a description of a group of people. In other words, identify the features and ways of life that distinguish a group of people from one another. But let me start this note of warning. If you are describing a group of people, you have to be very careful. So we are not guilty of ethnocentricity. When you believe that your own culture is better than other people's culture, when you assess other people's culture based on your own culture, it is called ethnocentricity. And so we should be able to avoid that. As much as you are saying your own culture is better, if others also know about your culture, they also say their own culture is better. And one of the problems we are having in Nigeria today is that we are trying to put that our culture is better than other people's culture. Now, I also said at that time that vegetation, climate, and environment of people affect their culture, affect their ways of life. In other words, the type of environment you live, the vegetation, for example, will affect your culture in terms of your clothing, in terms of your feeding, in terms of your belief system, and so on and so forth. Your vegetation will also affect your level of technology. It will affect your economy, and so on and so forth. So what we are trying to say is that vegetation and climate are very, very important in determination of people's culture. Now, let's now look at the people of the Savannah region. I said that the term Hausa Fulani is often used to cover the Hausa and Fulani in northern Nigeria. You know, we have northern Nigeria, central Nigeria, southwest Nigeria, southeast, and all that. But when we are talking of northern Nigeria, we are referring to the Hausa and the Fulani people. Although there are many other tribes there, there are many other groups there, but these are the largest ones, two people together, the Hausa and the Fulani, and they are in the northern part of the country. Let me also say that there are differences and similarities between them. If you see an Hausa man, you know this is an Hausa man. If you see a Fulani man, you see that, oh, this is a Fulani man. So there are distinguishing features, but the fact remains that we refer to them as people making up the northern Nigeria. And in the northern Nigeria, we are saying that Hausa and Fulani are found in the north. And the northern Nigeria is a combination of 3 geographical zones: northwest, northeast, and north central. These 3 geographical zones constitute what we refer to as the 19 states that make up Nigeria. Now, out of the 36 states we have 19 of them. 19 of them are in the north, broken down into 3 geopolitical zones. Let me also say that we cannot capture the whole of the cultural practice of the people. In other words, if you are looking at Hausa and Fulani people, we cannot talk about everything about them. Even when we take them for a whole semester, we can still not finish them. So what we are just going to do is just to mention some short descriptions about some important aspects of their life. So by the time you read more in textbooks, in journals and all that, you have a better understanding of them. And when you have cause to interact with them, as most of you are going to do through your NYSC, you understand much better their culture. For example, now I served in Gongola State, now divided into Taraba and Adamawa. Before that time, I knew nothing about the Hausa Fulani people. But that opportunity of NYSC gave the opportunity to live there for 1 year. And I was able to understand some of their cultural elements in terms of what they eat, how they greet, what they wear, and all that. And I was also able to pick up some language, Hausa language, which I can still remember till today. So when you also have cause to interact with them, you understand their culture better. Now, let's now describe the Savannah region. Savannah region. There are many things you should know about Savannah region. Number 1, the tropical continental air mass brings dry and dusty winds, which we call harmattan. It brings it from the Sahara Desert. And that's why we discovered that the most times of the year, the atmosphere in the north is always very windy, it's always very dusty. Then number 2, there's less rainfall compared to the south. The south has more rainfall than the northern Nigeria. And that is why, because they have limited rainfall, vegetation there is mostly grassland. The grassland in the north is the vegetation in the north is mostly grassland. But it's also good for cultivation of grains. That grassland is good for cultivation of grains. And that is why most of the grains in the southern part here are brought from the northern part of Nigeria. We have maize, we have millet, we have beans, we have sorghum. These are agricultural products that are suitable for cultivation in grassland. So you can now see that your culture is not better than their own because they have grassland. Here we don't have grassland. We have evergreen forest, and that's why we have these big trees and all that. Then that grassland is also good for rearing of animals. And that's why we discover that animals are very, very important to them in the north. They cherish their cattle. They cherish their goats. They cherish their horses, their donkeys, their sheep. That's why they have it in large quantity. If you remember, if Ileya is coming now, you will discover that most of the rams we are going to kill in the south here are brought from the north. Because the north is suitable for rearing of animals. The north is suitable for rearing of animals. Number 3, we are looking at the characteristics of the northern region. The region is noted for its hot temperature. The place is always very hot. If you have to go there, maybe from November till maybe around March, it's always very, very hot. Always very, very hot. And that is why the type of dresses and houses common in the north are suitable for that environment. The north is always very, very hot. Then number 4, we are trying to look at the description of the Hausa Fulani people. Number 4, Islam is the dominant religion among the Hausa and Fulani people. And that's why we discovered that Islamic prescriptions, Islamic regulations greatly influence Islamic religion. Is very common in the north. So there is a kind of blend between their cultural practices and Islamic precepts. And that's why scholars have argued that there is a very thin line between religion and culture in the northern part of the country. So Islam has taken a lot of their culture. Then, because of the strong influence of Islam, traditional religion has almost faded away in the north. If you compare it with the south, you discover that we still lay emphasis on traditional religion, where people still worship Oshun, they worship Ogun, they worship all sorts of Amaju and all that. In the north, they have limited traditional religion they practice. It's either Christianity or Islam, largely, or Christianity, because Islam came and took away most of their cultural practices. Then let's also know that about the Hausa and Fulani people, the Hausa and Fulani people is society is religiously conservative and fatalistic. Why? Because they attribute everything, both natural and artificial occurrences, even social problems, they attribute everything to God. So when good things are happening, it is God. When bad things are happening, it is God. So they don't say that they are conservative. And when people are conservative, they are not really open to change. And that may affect their level of development. When people are fatalistic, they don't want to reason on their own. They want to believe everything comes from God. Everything comes from God. And that is part of their practices in the north. So what I've done so far is to look at some descriptions about the Hausa Fulani people in the north, especially in terms of physical descriptions of their environment. You can also see that their environment is hot, it is harsh, and that is why their clothing, their food items are related to what they are able to produce. For example, we are going to look at later. If you look at their common foods, they are foods that you prepare from the grains they have. So if you are talking of kilishi, if you are talking of suya, all this came from their part of the country, from that part of the country, because they have the cattle, all the animals they can use for these food items. If you look at kunu, which they prepare, if you look at tuwo, these are food items they got or they get from their environment, which is from grains. But we will talk about this later. So what I've done so far is to look at physical description of this group of people. Now let's briefly look at their mode of dressing. Like I did say at the beginning, we cannot cover everything about their cultural practices. So what we have just done, or what we are going to do, is to look at some selected elements of their culture. Now let's look at their mode of dressing. For the male or men or boys or whatever, they are easily recognized by their elaborate dress called babariga. That is their babariga. And in addition to that babariga, we have a group that we call jalamia. Most times you see us wearing jalamia down here in the south. Some wear it to the mosque, some wear it to the town, some wear it as nice dress, especially the male. So the common dresses are babariga, which is a large flowing sort of agbada. Then we have another one called jalamia. And when you look at these two dresses, especially the babariga, you always see very beautiful embroidery, very beautiful designs on the neck. If you see any typical Hausa man wearing babariga, you see very nice embroidery. You see very nice designs. That. In addition to that, also they also wear very colorful caps with very good design. And you see Hausa, you see various designs. That's part of their culture. So that men are